At the height of his career, Johnny Depp wasn't just a movie star, he was a money-making machine. With Pirates of the Caribbean alone, his paychecks soared past $50 million per film. Forbes once listed his net worth at a staggering $650 million. He had it all: fame, fortune, and the kind of power in Hollywood that only a handful of actors ever reach. And yet behind the glamorous red carpets and blockbuster premieres, the clock was already ticking toward one of the most spectacular financial downfalls in celebrity history. How does someone lose $650 million? Was it reckless spending? Was it betrayal from the people managing his empire? Or was it the dangerous mix of fame, addiction, and chaos that consumed his life off-screen? This is the story Hollywood never wanted to tell. How Johnny Depp, one of the most bankable stars of all time, went from commanding the world stage to fighting for financial survival. From private islands and luxury yachts to lawsuits worth tens of millions, every choice, every indulgence, and every betrayal chipped away at his fortune. Today, at 61, Depp finally confronts the truth. The money is gone, the empire has crumbled, and the legacy of his fortune is as haunting as the characters he played. In the early 2000s, Johnny Depp was untouchable. He wasn't just an actor, he was a cultural phenomenon. After decades of building his reputation as Hollywood's rebel, the role of Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean transformed him into a global superstar. The franchise generated billions, and Depp became one of the highest-paid actors in the world. At one point, his deal with Disney guaranteed him more than $55 million for a single film, a figure that stunned even industry insiders. But Pirates was only the beginning. Depp's eccentric charisma made him the go-to star for blockbuster directors. From Tim Burton's gothic fantasies to big-budget tentpoles, every project seemed to carry his name. Studios considered him a guaranteed box office magnet, and producers paid whatever it took to secure his signature. At his peak, he earned over $100 million in a single year, making him one of the richest entertainers alive. With this wealth, Depp constructed an empire. He acquired more than a dozen luxury homes across the globe, sprawling estates in Los Angeles, penthouses in downtown Hollywood, a French chateau, and even an entire island in the Bahamas. His real estate portfolio alone was valued at hundreds of millions. To the outside world, it was the life of dreams, a pirate king who had turned fantasy into reality. But beneath the surface, the seeds of disaster were already being planted. The money flowed faster than it came in. Every new contract meant more spending. Every blockbuster success fueled another indulgence. Johnny Depp wasn't just living like a star, he was living like royalty, convinced the fortune would never run dry. And for a while, it seemed impossible to imagine that it ever could. If the world thought $650 million was untouchable, Johnny Depp proved otherwise. His spending habits became the stuff of legend, an endless parade of extravagance that blurred the line between luxury and madness. For Depp, money wasn't just for comfort. It was fuel for a lifestyle built on indulgence and fantasy. He owned 14 homes around the globe, including a sprawling 45-acre chateau in France and a Kentucky horse farm. Each property required constant maintenance, staff, and security. Millions burned annually just to keep the lights on. And then there was his private island in the Bahamas, complete with solar-powered villas, where he once planned to retire in seclusion. Transportation was no less excessive. Depp purchased a $20 million yacht, lavishly decorated and staffed like a floating palace. He kept a fleet of luxury cars at his disposal and reportedly spent thousands every month just to keep them serviced and ready. But it was his personal indulgences that shocked even Hollywood insiders. Depp was known to spend $30,000 a month on wine, importing rare vintages from across the globe. He built a collection of over 70 vintage guitars and filled his homes with eccentric art, including original Basquiat and Warhol pieces worth millions. His jewelry, costumes, and personal trinkets numbered in the thousands, many never even worn or used. And then came the security. Living like a rock star made enemies as quickly as it made fans. Depp reportedly spent $1.5 million annually on 24/7 security for himself and his family. Add to that the cost of private jets, bodyguards, chefs, stylists, and assistants, and the monthly bills soared into the millions. To outsiders, it looked like a dream life. To Depp, it felt normal after all. The money kept coming, and Hollywood kept paying. But this lifestyle was unsustainable. Even with his record-breaking salaries, Depp's spending far outpaced his earnings. What once looked like harmless eccentricity soon became financial quicksand. And the real trouble was just beginning, because not all of his fortune disappeared on luxuries. Some of it vanished into disastrous investments and broken promises. Spending like a king was one thing, but where Johnny Depp truly lost control was in the world of investments. For every fortune made in Hollywood, there's an equally dangerous shadow of poor advice, risky ventures, and misplaced trust. Depp, like many stars before him, learned this the hard way. He poured millions into properties. He never lived in lavish estates in France that required constant renovations, a chain of Los Angeles penthouses that sat empty, and even an abandoned horse farm in Kentucky. What was once meant to be a portfolio of wealth quickly became a web of financial dead weight, draining millions in taxes and upkeep. Then came the art and collectibles. Depp was passionate about art, especially works by Basquiat, Klimt, and Warhol. While some pieces appreciated in value, many were acquired at inflated prices, and when he later attempted to sell them, they failed to return the fortune he expected. His obsession with collecting, whether it was art, guitars, or Hollywood memorabilia, turned into another financial sinkhole. Perhaps the most damaging of all were his business partnerships. Depp invested heavily in ventures that collapsed almost as soon as they began. Restaurants, small production companies, and promises of lucrative side projects drained cash but delivered little in return. Insiders claimed he was often convinced to back friends' ideas, blinded by loyalty rather than financial logic. And while these investments struggled, the costs piled up. Properties sat unsold, businesses lost money, and his management team scrambled to plug the leaks. Instead of slowing down, Depp kept chasing the next big thing, convinced that one hit investment would balance the books. It never came. By the mid-2010 the numbers were undeniable. Despite hundreds of millions in career earnings, Depp was running out of liquid cash. The fortune he thought was unshakable was crumbling beneath him, piece by piece. And soon, his empire wasn't just draining him, it was dragging him into court. By the time Johnny Depp's finances began to collapse, the blame game was inevitable. And no battle was more public or more destructive than his war against the management group, the firm that had handled his money for nearly 2 decades. In 2017, Depp launched a $25 million lawsuit against TMG, accusing them of fraud, negligence, and outright theft. According to Depp, the managers had mismanaged his fortune, taken unauthorized loans against his properties, and pocketed millions in fees. He painted them as the villains who had betrayed his trust and drained his wealth while he was distracted by movie sets and red carpets. But TMG struck back with equal ferocity. In court filings, they claimed Depp had no one to blame but himself. They alleged that his lifestyle cost $2 million a month, pointing to a laundry list of extravagances. $3 million spent to blast Hunter S. Thompson's ashes from a cannon, $75 million tied up in real estate, and endless bills for private jets, bodyguards, and luxury indulgences. They argued that they had warned him repeatedly, only to be ignored or dismissed. For the public, the legal war was shocking. Headlines painted Depp not as the beloved Hollywood pirate, but as a reckless spender who had squandered a once unimaginable fortune. Every embarrassing detail of his private life became fodder for the press. The wine bills, the island, the art collections. The image of Johnny Depp as a free-spirited artist was replaced with one of financial recklessness and chaos. The lawsuits dragged on for years, staining his reputation and exposing the fragility of his empire. Eventually, Depp settled with TMG in 2018, but by then, the damage was done. Tens of millions in legal fees had been spent. His finances were under a microscope, and his career momentum was stalling. Hollywood studios, already wary of his eccentric behavior, now saw him as a liability. In many ways, the courtroom drama over money foreshadowed the even darker battles that would follow. Because just as Depp tried to salvage what was left of his fortune, another storm was already brewing, one that would cost him not only more money, but his career, his image, and nearly his entire legacy. If losing hundreds of millions wasn't enough, the collapse of Johnny Depp's finances collided with an even more devastating storm: his personal life. As the lawsuits with the management group played out in the headlines, another drama was brewing: his tumultuous marriage and bitter divorce from actress Amber Heard. What began as a private relationship spiraled into a public spectacle. In 2016, Heard accused Depp of abuse, sparking a media frenzy that instantly overshadowed his career. Studios that once saw him as a box office guarantee suddenly hesitated. Disney quietly distanced itself from their once beloved Captain Jack Sparrow. Warner Bros. Grew cautious with his role in the Fantastic Beasts franchise. The man who had once commanded $50 million per role was now being recast, dropped, or sidelined entirely. The financial dominoes toppled quickly. With fewer blockbuster paychecks and mounting legal costs, Depp's wealth shrank further. Court battles with Heard drained millions more, and the public backlash made it nearly impossible for him to secure new big-budget contracts. By the late 2010 second, Johnny Depp wasn't just facing bankruptcy, he was staring at professional exile. And yet, behind the scandals and headlines, the same truth lingered. Without his fortune, Depp's extravagant lifestyle was unsustainable. The staff, the properties, the yachts, all of it became an anchor pulling him deeper into debt. He sold homes, parted with prized possessions, and quietly offloaded art collections. But it was never enough to erase the losses. What made the downfall even more painful was the speed. In less than a decade, Depp had gone from the highest-paid actor in Hollywood to a man fighting to keep control of what remained. The lawsuits, the divorce, the accusations, they didn't just cost him money. They cost him credibility, reputation, and the freedom to live as he once had. The fortune was gone. The career was hanging by a thread. And the world that once adored him now seemed eager to watch him fall. At 61, Johnny Depp stands as a living reminder of how fragile fortune can be. Once celebrated as Hollywood's richest rebel, he now carries the scars of financial ruin, legal warfare, and personal scandal. The man who once owned islands, castles, and an empire of wealth has been forced to confront the truth. The money is gone, and it may never return. Yet, in that loss, there's a haunting kind of freedom. Depp himself has admitted that wealth never brought him happiness. It bought distractions, it bought indulgence, but it never silenced the chaos within. The $650 million he lost is not just a number, it's a symbol of everything Hollywood gives and everything it can take away. For his fans, the tragedy is bittersweet. They see a man who gave unforgettable performances, who poured his eccentricity and soul into characters like Captain Jack Sparrow, Edward Scissorhands, and Donnie Brasco. They also see how fame and fortune consumed him, how the very empire he built became the cage that broke him. Today, Depp lives not as the untouchable superstar he once was, but as a cautionary tale, a story of riches to rags, of brilliance shadowed by excess. His legacy is no longer measured only in box office numbers, but in the reminder that even the brightest crowns can fade, and that $650 million can vanish faster than anyone dares to believe.